Hey everybody, welcome back to Around the Emirates podcast with Sara Mousa, where I speak to guests from across UAE about topics you want to hear about. Today I'm joined by the formidable Reem El Houni. Hi Reem.
Hi, Sarah.
I'm super excited to have Reem on the show today because she is a trailblazer in the industry. She is an executive producer, media strategist, and founder of Ti22 Films and Mission Visible, which are all platforms that help leaders build their influence through video. Please, Reem, tell me your story and what got you started.
Well, firstly, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. Tell you my story. Where do I begin? I think the easiest and the fastest way to share this is that I've always been obsessed with the world of film and TV. I've been very fortunate to grow in this industry from a young age, so I've worked my way up. And I think that's very important. I think it's very important when you're in the production world to actually understand what it takes to produce content. So I've spent a big portion of my life behind the camera, producing content, producing shows for other people. And that's entailed everything from kind of large government events like doing a daily show at Expo 2020 to our daily show that airs on Dubai One right now, DXB Today, but also to working with governments and broadcasters and entities in helping them communicate their message. But what I'm more passionate about more recently is supporting individuals because I feel like we're in an era where everybody can now be a content creator. Everybody out there has the power to start to create their own content, really promote themselves and be visible and gain, attract the opportunities that they deserve. So I've seen that shift happen for me personally in the last decade as I've pushed myself in front of the camera. And now I'm super passionate about supporting others do the same thing.
That is so cool. I love the fact that you're harnessing your own experience and your own talent to help do something positive for the community, help teach them something new, help them to almost PR themselves in a way because what the way that you create your own content is a reflection of who you are as a person. And obviously to bring your vast expertise into this is a interesting journey in itself. What kind of challenges do you feel you faced in your journey so far?
There's so many challenges, if I'm honest. I think, being a female in media, I can't honestly say it's been an easy journey. It is a male-dominated industry, and I think you have to kind of force your way into roles and conversations. And the way I've overcome that over time is ensuring that I've always been someone with the most knowledge in the room or being as educated as possible so that, gender doesn't become a conversation point, but people start to see the value that you bring and the fact that you really understand the medium. So I would say one of the challenges has been just the gender stereotyping and pushing through in this industry. I would say a second challenge has been the fact that I'm very passionate about creating original English content. And although the UAE is a very multicultural, country, there isn't a lot of opportunity for creating original English content. So I feel like I've had to push and pave my own way in, supporting talent, working and creating content on YouTube. And then ultimately, like what we've recently done, I'm going to share a quick case study, but I think many people may be aware of Arva from Frying Pan Adventures. We worked together over the last year and a half to develop a YouTube show, gain traction, and then now have been able to go to OSN and have them agree to air a 10 episode run of that. So to answer your original question about overcoming challenges, I think we're in an ecosystem where you have to create the opportunity. It doesn't always come to you. You have to pave the way and see how can you stand out and ensure that you get to where you want to go by persevering. I'm going to add a third one just because we're here. But I think in the personal space, I've seen so many people feel, imposter syndrome and feel like they shouldn't be on camera and they shouldn't be on stages. And some of it is cultural. Some of it is that cultural mindset where people, have grown up hearing their mothers say "aib," which is basically like it's inappropriate to
Yep.
do. Uh, yeah, and then just like gaining that confidence to like push through that and grow your visibility, I think has been something else that I personally have had to overcome, but I'm really proud to support others overcome that now as well. So you got three there instead of the one, but I think they were all important.
You're just making my job so easy today. Like you're answering all my questions in the best way. I'm just gonna sit here and just keep, be inspired by you and then just be in awe of your journey.
That's
I
very
mean, you speak with such passion, Reem, about what you do. What is your favorite thing about what you do?
Honestly, I literally just had this conversation where I feel like I've had a bit of an identity pivot, because my favorite part about what I do is watching transformations happen, like watching people who have been, always felt nervous on camera, always felt like this was something they couldn't do. And then after, some training and after like spending time with us in a boot camp, watching them at the end of the day, kind of just feel that little bit more confident, that little bit more ready to take on these opportunities. So I'm starting to see the direct impact of the work that I do, and I honestly think that's become one of my favorite things. And when I say an identity pivot, because my entire career has been in the world of TV and content creation, and I've realized that this visibility theme extends across everything I do. It's how do I help people become more visible, and whether that's one-to-one in through a workshop or through training or through the TV shows that we produce. How do we shine a spotlight on people who would not have necessarily got the attention otherwise or really deserve to get that attention? And maybe they haven't been the loudest in the room so far, and this is enabling them to get their stories told. So quite a bit there, but ultimately that's what makes me really happy and why I'm most proud of.
Speaking of stories being told, what is one of your favorite stories in your career that you'd like to share today?
One of my favorite stories, and I actually tell it quite often when I do my keynotes, is about the opening of Burj Khalifa. So I was very fortunate to produce the live. I actually produced two live shows that day to celebrate the opening of the Burj. I produced one in the morning and one in the evening. The morning show went very well. It was, I think, about 4 hours, and so we were in a positive momentum going into the English one. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I will share that absolutely everything I planned for that show went wrong. Like everything. It was one of those events. We've all got used to these massive events taking place downtown and New Year's Eve. But I want you to imagine that this was like the very, very first time that an event of that scale was happening in that area. And His Highness Sheikh Mohammed was inaugurating the Burj, and he arrived almost an hour early. So because he arrived an hour early, we were suddenly like needing to go like live on air, and before I knew it, people were counting down, and it was like 20, 19, 18, and and we were scrambling, and honestly, everything we had planned went wrong. But the reason I enjoy sharing this story is because I remember the sensation. I remember that feeling. And I remember like the minute we went off air and being overwhelmed with that feeling of disappointment. Like I actually felt like I'd failed. I'd felt like, how is it possible, such an important event with His Highness present, with so many dignitaries present, that I hadn't given it justice? And, we had like 40 cameras and we were giving a feed globally to other stations. And there was a combination of relief that we were off air, like thank God it was over, but also like disappointment in myself in like not having navigated it better to produce, a strong show. But the moment that I'll never forget is like sitting down, and right at that moment, my mum rang me right at that moment. And I remember looking down at my phone, and I picked it up and I was like, "Hi, Mama." And she just she looked at, well, she didn't look at me, but I heard her say, "Mabruk." That was the best show I've ever watched. And she just went on to describe everything she loved about the show. And she's like, oh, and the fireworks and the fountain and His Highness being present. It was amazing. She's like, oh, you must be so proud. That's like the best show you've ever produced.
Oh,
And that moment has really stuck with me because I always wonder, how is it possible that the worst show that I've ever produced, according to me, is the best show that my mum thinks I've produced. And that's when I really learned an important lesson about perception being reality. It actually really didn't matter what I'd planned. It didn't matter what had gone wrong. It didn't matter that it didn't go to, the way it should have. As long as her experience of it was great and she was happy, then all was good. So I love sharing that because I think we all give ourselves a hard time when things don't go the way we plan. And for most people, external people don't see what was meant to happen. So we all need to like, give ourselves some grace. And I'm so grateful I learned that lesson back in 2010 because, We did a daily live show at Expo 2020, and the amount of things that went wrong during that show, I'm not going to go into now, but it was an important lesson to have learned earlier in my career.
But you bring up such a good point about the idea of being kind of kind to ourselves. And like we work so hard and we're so knee deep in the nitty-gritty tactical details every single day that we forget there's actually a bigger picture happening. There's someone with a fresh pair of eyes who hasn't seen this before, and it's actually going to be much more appreciated than we think. And it goes to show, especially when it comes to women, like we have to work 10 times harder to get the recognition that we deserve. But when we do and we, succeed, the fulfillment that comes from that, like the fact that a shift came an hour early to an event, that never happens. So I can only imagine how you must have felt.
Absolutely. And I remember it so clearly because it was like you just don't expect that kind. You can expect anything else, but you don't expect that. So yeah, it was definitely interesting.
But you take me now, you're bringing me now to my final question for you today, Reem. So you've talked a little bit about the importance of being kind to yourself. You've talked about the importance of accepting that not everything will go according to plan. And you've talked about the fact that something as small as someone calling you saying Mabruk, whether it's your mother or a friend or someone who's been there and supporting you, how important that is. What is your word of advice for the people listening that maybe want to get into the same industry but are too scared to take the first step?
Honestly, I think there are two pieces of advice. One is to ignore the naysayers. And I think this is so important because it's very easy to listen to external opinions that are contrary to yours and believe that they must be right and they must know best and allow those voices to impact your journey. So you need to do as much as you can to block that out. And I know it's difficult. Sometimes it can be family, sometimes it's close friends, but you have to stay focused on what you want to achieve. And part of that is blocking out the naysayers. But number two is I really believe in persistence. I really believe in dreaming big and having that persistence because I've seen it. I've seen it happen when you just stay the course and keep knocking on doors. Eventually, a door will open. And most people they give up too soon. Most people, they post a few videos, they put a few pieces of content out and oh, it didn't do very well. And then they feel deflated and they stop. But you need to actually get to the tipping point. You need to be consistent enough, to build that audience and grow that interest. And even from a career progression perspective, we're not in a very easy industry. You need to keep going before the right doors open. So persistence is definitely the biggest piece of advice I can give anyone.
I love that. Thank you so much. And how can people kind of get in touch with you, be part of your platforms? How can they be part of this experience with you?
So I'm pretty accessible. So I think, I'm on LinkedIn, Reem El Houni on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. Always happy to have a chat and look forward to supporting you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today, Reem. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you.